In a previous video, which is titled If Whether or Not Jujutsu Kaisen is Losing Its Hype, there was a comment made by Claire Amel, which I have pinned as the top comment on that video. And it's an interesting comment because I never really thought about it if whether the fans actually prefer the story of Jujutsu Kaisen or if they prefer the characters of the story. The story is still unfolding and it's a very battle-centric type of story, as we have seen with the latest arc with Sukuna fighting off against everyone. So naturally, as it's a full-on battle manga, you would have your own favorite character. It's like Tekken or Street Fighter. You would naturally have your own favorite character to play with. So here in this video, I want to ask the Jujutsu Kaisen fans that are watching this video, if you guys prefer the story or are you just reading the manga or watching the anime solely because you have a favorite character and you want to see them do well. Do Jujutsu Kaisen fans have a character stand problem? Let's have an open discussion, guys, because I think this is a fun topic to talk about. I think personally, throughout media, we have always followed stories because of, well, great stories essentially. For instance, Game of Thrones before season 8. That show, I would say I was following it for the story. Even though Jon Snow was my favorite character, I wasn't watching it for him. He could die and I would still carry on watching the show. Obviously, it would be a massive loss for me as he was my favorite character, but the story is still quality enough for me to carry on watching. This might be weird, but my second favorite character of that show was the Night King. I genuinely wanted him to win in the end, and I think such a dark and twisted ending would be groundbreaking. It's a bit like if Sukuna were to win in this story, which will allow cursed spirits to come out of the shadows, which in turn would mean that the cursed spirits have now taken over Earth and are now the dominant species. That is something I would have loved to have seen Game of Thrones do with the Night King, but deep down, I knew that was never going to happen as it's a big-time mainstream show. The showrunners will never have the guts to actually end the show in a dark way because of the potential backlash that they will receive. But Gege Akutami doesn't give a shit, so I think there's a possibility for Sukuna to win in the end. But the thing with a show like Game of Thrones compared to a series like Jujutsu Kaisen, Game of Thrones has this intertwined story with many characters in different parts of the world, aiming to be the ruler of Westeros and to sit on the Iron Throne. Even though it's a show that has big bombastic battles and wars, it doesn't mean it's a battle series. It's more of a political thriller than an epic battle series, like a Jujutsu Kaisen. I think that's why, even though many saw Ned Stark, their favorite character in season 1, get killed off, people were still going to watch it because they wanted to see Joffrey and the Lannisters get their comeuppance, as well as seeing the political drama on who will end up on the Iron Throne. Yes, there's characters you prefer to see on the Iron Throne, but it's not like you're fully rooting for them. You just feel seeing them on the Iron Throne would be the best thing for that world. Whilst in Jujutsu Kaisen, the characters are all fighters compared to Game of Thrones. So just like how in Tekken or in Street Fighter or any other fighting game, you would have your own favorite fighter. Same with Jujutsu Kaisen. You would have your own favorite sorcerer or cursed spirit who have their own individual domain expansions, which would also be your personal favorite as well. With a story that's a pure fighting story compared to a political drama, it's easier to root for an individual character more because the fighters have their own unique fighting styles and powers, which, depending on what you prefer, you would definitely have a favorite fighter in Jujutsu Kaisen, which will result in that character becoming your favorite character. It's like basketball, football, or even tennis. Tennis is a really good example of this. I used to love watching tennis, especially during the Big Four era with Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, Novak Djokovic, and Andy Murray, who may not be on the same level as the other three. However, he did have some major wins against them, so I would put him as a strong number 4, whilst the other 3 were at a slightly higher level. I used to love watching Roger Federer play. This guy was an actual genius. The trick shot he did against Djokovic in the US Open back in 2009, where he shot the ball whilst facing backwards and in between his legs, is the best shot I've ever seen, and he was by far my favorite tennis player. But ever since he retired, I barely even follow tennis anymore. Don't get me wrong, I still do watch some matches, especially when Wimbledon is on. But ever since Roger retired, and even though Nadal, Djokovic and Andy Murray are still playing, I don't have an interest in watching them because my personal favorite was Federer, and he was the superstar that got me into watching tennis. And without him, I don't have much of an interest. And similarly, like Jujutsu Kaisen, tennis is an individual sport with the players having their own individual skills, just like the Jujutsu sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen, where the emphasis is on the fighting of that story. Look at WWE, for instance. Yes, the views are doing okay now because of Roman Reigns and the Bloodline storyline, but before all of that, we had mediocrity. Before Roman Reigns turned heel, he was genuinely the most hated babyface of all time, along with prime John Super Cena back in the mid to late 2000s. When the Attitude Era finished, that's when you can see the viewership declining. In the year of 2000, the average TV rating was at 5.88 million viewers, but when you compare it to 2017, it's around 2.1 to 2.2. There's stats on Google if you want to do your research, but they're all there for us to see, and you can see that there's a massive decline in viewership, and a lot of the decline is due to the superstars like Stone Cold and The Rock not being there anymore. Look at this year's WrestleMania. People who haven't watched wrestling in 10 years started watching it this year solely because The Rock was having a match. Whenever WWE need big viewers and ratings, they will announce a surprise appearance from a veteran wrestler like a Goldberg or an Undertaker or even a John Cena nowadays. They don't even keep it as a surprise anymore. They announce it because they know that the fans who stopped watching because the veteran guys have all left will return to watch because the veteran guys are now making an appearance. WWE is built around superstars and individuals to carry the company. It needs fans to stand and support the individual wrestlers in order to progress storylines and sell merchandise. I feel Jujutsu Kaisen is going down that road without Gege actually noticing that this is happening. Gege ended up making superstar characters with crazy abilities for fans to follow rather than the actual plot and intrigue of the story. Gojo has technically returned, but why do you think that is? It's to generate hype for the Gojo fans who have stopped following the story. And believe me guys, there are fans who have stopped reading the manga after chapter 236. Claire Amell also made the point that ever since the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, everyone's quote-unquote favorite character has taken on Sukuna, so it's become a thing where we are comparing how each of our favorite characters are doing against Sukuna. We also have the Sukuna fans celebrating their GOAT at the top of the mountain, and rightfully so. Sukuna has been an unstoppable machine in this arc. The characters in Jujutsu Kaisen have reached a level like how Dragon Ball Z characters have reached, where people don't even look at their characters or personalities as much as their individual power and strength. In Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super, we were already analyzing how strong Beast Gohan is compared to Ultra Instinct Goku or up against Broly at full power. Their characters stop being characters and become stars, or should I say superstars. And what I mean by that is, a superstar is what fans would follow or stand for. A character is fans dissecting the progress and development of an individual character in the story. Hope that makes sense, but is this even a bad thing? Having fans follow the characters rather than the actual story. Whilst there is a risk of fans dropping the series after seeing their favorite character die is a bad thing, the fact that fans care so much about these individual characters is a credit to Gege's writing and hype for these characters. Look at a story like the original Digimon. That is a very simple story, but most fans followed it to the end because we all identified and loved the characters. Ultimately, if you have great characters that fans love, then that creates a base of hardcore fans that will follow your story to the end. But the problem with Jujutsu Kaisen is that Gege is killing off so many fan favorite characters, which is why the fans are getting angry at him. If he kept a majority of them alive, I don't think there would have been any issues. Hell, I don't think we would have noticed whether if fans prefer the Jujutsu Kaisen story or the Jujutsu Kaisen characters. But it is a fun discussion, so guys, let me know in the comments down below if you think Jujutsu Kaisen fans prefer the characters or the story of Jujutsu Kaisen. And remember, just like I always say, don't forget to subscribe. The Shaman Shrine.